Good evening. I'd like to formally welcome everyone, including members of the gallery and the press, to the resumption of the April Council meeting. My name is Stephen Sagona and I'm the Interim Chief Executive Officer of the Golden Plains Shire Council. Tonight this council meeting is taking place within the council chambers at the Golden Plains Civic Centre in Bannockburn, and it is open to the public. The meeting is being live streamed in accordance with council's governance rules, and I welcome any viewers joining us online tonight. As the meeting is open to the public to attend here in the gallery, if the live stream ceases at any time, the meeting will continue on. I'd like to acknowledge country. Golden Plains Shire spans the traditional lands of the Wadawurrung and Eastern Maar people. Council acknowledges them as the traditional owners and custodians and pays its respects to both Wadawurrung and Eastern Maar elders past, present and emerging. And Council extends that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Golden Plains Shire. Councillors, last night you resolved unanimously to elect an acting mayor for the period until the day prior to the mayor returns from leave. As this meeting is a continuation of last night's meeting, we will now resume with the election of an acting mayor. The election of the acting mayor is not and does not require a motion or a resolution. It is an election process provided by the governance rules in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020. The votes cast by each councillor are recorded in the minutes regardless of a division being called. Where there is only one candidate, no voting process is required for that candidate to be declared as duly elected. In accordance with Council's governance rules, all nominations for the position of acting mayor were required to be submitted in writing to the interim CEO by 12 noon today. Councillors, we have two nominations for the position of acting mayor, one from Councillor Robbins and one from Councillor Kirby. I'll now ask each of the councillors who have been nominated if they accept the nomination. Nominations do not require a seconder. Councillors, once you accept your nomination, you are considered a candidate and you can no longer withdraw your candidature. So, Councillor Robbins, do you accept the nomination?
As a professional courtesy and in the interests of business getting done tonight, I'd like to withdraw my candidacy.
Thank you, Councillor Robbins. So, Councillor Robbins has withdrawn her nomination. Or has not accepted the nomination. Councillor Kirby, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby. And so, as we only have one candidate, I declare Councillor Kirby is duly elected as acting mayor of the Golden Plains Shire for the period up to and including the day before the Mayor Sarah Hayden returns from leave. And so I will now vacate the chair and pass over to across to the acting mayor, Councillor Kirby, to assume the chair for the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank my fellow councillors for supporting me for the role of acting mayor and the councillors who nominated me. I'd also like to thank Emma for your consideration as well. I sincerely hope that Sarah, our mayor, will be back in the chair as soon as she can, as she was the duly elected mayor of the Shire. And as a group, we will work hard to achieve this. I would also like to thank the gallery for your endeavours to also be here tonight, and the councillors thank you as well, 2 nights in a row. I will now recite the opening declaration on behalf of councillors. We, the councillors of the Golden Plains Shire, declare that we will undertake on every occasion to carry out our duties in the best interest of the community, and that our conduct shall maintain the standards of the Code of Good Governance, so that we may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in this council by the people of the Golden Plains Shire. Confirmation of the minutes. Councillors, we have a resolution before us to confirm the minutes of the ordinary meetings of council held on the 25th of March 2025 and the 1st of April 2025, and the unscheduled meeting of council held on the 11th of March 2025 as circulated. Can I have a mover? I now will put the motion. All those in favour? Are there any declarations of conflict of interest?
The first item, 7.1, with the Teesdale flood study.
And the reason of the conflict?
It affects my property.
Question time. Public question time runs for a maximum of 30 minutes prior to consideration of the formal agenda of council. We consider questions received with notice from the public. I will call each person who has submitted a question forward. Please come up to the microphone and ask your question as it was submitted. Noting preamble is not to be read out. I note that the question time is not an opportunity to make general statements or enter into the debate with council or officers. Can I please ask if Andrea Bolton is here? Thank you. Can you please, would you like to come up and ask your question? If you would like to make it a bit shorter, that'd be great. Thank you.
Why were many of our Shire's elderly excluded from being able to be guaranteed a seat at tonight's meeting in these council chambers? Because Golden Plains Shire made the choice that it was only possible to apply to register for those who own a computer and an email address. Golden Plains Shire Council describes themselves as an all-inclusive council. Just hours before the end of business on Thursday 17th of April, before the council offices closed for the long Easter break, a post was put up on the Golden Plains Shire Council website, but not on any community notice board or Facebook pages in the Golden Plains Shire where people could see it, that stated that pre-registration via email alone closes at 10 a.m. on Tuesday 22nd April, and anyone who has pre-registered will be emailed by 12 noon on Tuesday advising of either successful seat allocation or that the seat allocation has been exhausted. Seating will be allocated in order of receipt of pre-registrations. So without access to a computer or email address, many of our elderly, those without a computer, Golden Plains Shire has now made it impossible for these people to successfully be admitted to this meeting. And road safety is a fear that many of these people feel. The discrimination doesn't add up with the active ageing and inclusion plan.
A response will be from our CEO, acting CEO. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and thank you, Ms Bolton, for the question. In running a pre-registration process for last night's gallery, given we didn't run one for tonight, given that we thought we had just a bit of a better sense of the numbers, but in making a decision to run a pre-registration process for last night's gallery, that decision was taken given that we have some items on the agenda that were potentially likely to attract a higher than or a larger than normal gallery, and we didn't want to turn away people at the door for lack of seating capacity in the room where they had travelled to the meeting. So the pre-registration process is used by many councils from time to time for this purpose, and we don't tend to use it often here, but we may use it from time to time to manage numbers in the gallery, and so we're not turning people away at the door. In relation to your specific question, community members certainly had the option to register online and via email, but we also did take a number of pre-registrations over the phone, and there was the opportunity for people to register other family members or friends online if they were having difficulties doing so for themselves. It's fair to say that we do these processes and we roll them out and we see what works and we improve for next time. And so if and when we run a pre-registration process in the future, we can take on board those things and make sure it's as accessible as possible for everyone.
Yeah. Procedural motion. Councillors, I have a procedural motion before me to reorder the agenda. The recommendation is as follows. That item 8.1, notice of motion, improving road safety for vulnerable users in our towns on the agenda be considered as the first item ahead of item 7.1, planning scheme amendment, C104 GPLA, the Teesdale flood study post-exhibition. Are there any questions, councillors? Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Phelan. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sharkey. Put the motion, all those in favour? Carried. We will now move on to consider the formal agenda. Notice of motion, improving road safety for vulnerable users in our towns, item 8.1, and it is page 60 on the agenda. We have one notice of motion for consideration tonight submitted by Councillor Gamble as printed in the agenda. Are there any questions? No, if there are no questions, I will now ask Councillor Gamble to move the motion.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Basically, as an introduction, this NOM is about taking a number of varied actions for improving road safety for vulnerable road users.
Do I have a seconder? Mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. Thank you. Well, I put it to my fellow councillors that this NOM is designed to address serious safety concerns and fears in our township communities. I take it, councillors, the NOM has been read and is reasonably self-explanatory. I note I took time to consult with fellow councillors and accepted advice and guidance with Director Josipovic to ensure clarity and realistic implementation. I thank Councillor Robbins also for seconding the the NOM application. By vulnerable road users, I basically mean everyone who isn't in a car, including pedestrians, cyclists, wheelchair users, e-mobility users, and of course, some are more vulnerable than others, such as children, the elderly, and people with disabilities. I acknowledge the terrible tragedy in Teesdale spurred the bringing on of this notice of motion, but I, along with many others, have been active with concerns going back to the early 2000s on this issue and recognise similar dangers in other towns as well in Golden Plains Shire, which is recognised in this NOM. I also note how comparable population-sized towns to Teesdale and other areas and regions have had significant infrastructure investment around traffic road safety and feel we are missing out. I believe we need to get organised and united and have our local government take a leading role in engagement and advocacy for better safety and livability. This NOM proposes to do this and contains actions that are both immediate and strategic. Thank you.
Councillor Robbins, would you like to speak?
Thank you.
Thank you.
This notice of motion recognises that pedestrian safety has been a concern in Teesdale for a number of years, as evidenced by current and previous structure plans. Council officers have advocated for various safety improvements in Teesdale, some of which were not supported by the Department of Transport. This notice of motion aims to strengthen Council's existing advocacy policy and infrastructure work based on facts and evidence in the best interests of the community. And thank you, Councillor Gamble.
Is there any other councillors who'd like to speak against the motion? Is there any councillors who'd like to speak for the motion? Councillor Cunningham?
Acting Mayor, I'd just like to acknowledge the time and effort and commitment to the notice of motion that Councillor Gamble has undertaken on this matter of significant community importance. Well done. Yeah. Thank you.
Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak to the motion? Councillor Sharkey?
Yeah, thank you very much. I too would like to acknowledge and thank both Councillor Gamble and Councillor Robbins for coming together, and as Councillor Gamble says, there's been a good bit of work done with officers and the like. I would like to highlight tonight and remind us all something simple but fundamental. We are all here on the same side. Every councillor in this chamber, every officer working behind the scenes, we are all here to achieve the same thing, the best outcomes for our community within the guidelines and the responsibilities set for us. I do find it hard to understand how this issue, one rooted in safety and shared concern, has become so divisive and fractured. We all care deeply and we all want Teesdale, Bannockburn, Maud, Smysedale and every township in the Shire to be safe and vibrant places to live, raise families and grow old in. There's no question that the tragic accident in Teesdale has shaken all of us, and appreciating that those circumstances are under police investigation. What we can talk about is what's been done and what continues to be done, not just in Teesdale but across the Shire. As highlighted, over many years, Council has advocated to the Department of Transport and Planning for safer speed limits, better road infrastructure, improved pedestrian facilities, and we've had wins. We've secured lower speed zones, upgraded bus stops where kids used to disembark in open drains, and negotiated funding from private partners like Tag Energy for pedestrian refuges in places where formal crossings are out of budget. None of this work happens overnight, and often it is done in the background. The meetings, the design work, the negotiations, the advocacy, and sometimes despite everyone's best efforts, we hit walls. Not because of not trying, but because of policies, budget constraints or jurisdictional limitations. Even when projects are funded, like the refuge crossing in Rokewood and Teesdale, we've seen them challenged due to competing interests, and still officers and councillors alike have come back to the table to find compromises. So when we hear frustration, and we do hear it, we all get it. But what I want us to all remember is the effort and the good intent behind the scenes. The system is far from perfect, but the people working within it here are trying to do the best work with the tools available. Let's not allow division to cloud a shared purpose that brings us all here. We have more in common than we don't. Let's continue to work together respectfully, constructively, and focus on the outcomes that we all want, which is a safer, stronger Golden Plains community. Hopefully this motion put forward by Councillor Gamble and Councillor Robbins further aids to those advocacy works in the coming years.
Markey. Is there any other councillors who would like to speak? I will then ask Councillor Gamble if he would like to close.
I thank the people that the councillors have spoken for their support on it. I refer people to the rationale as well that's written in the agenda for the aspirations for this NOM, and hopefully we can see some action happening in a relatively nearer time, in council time anyway, local government timelines, but definitely in the to have those big strategic sort of improvements will take time. We have to recognise that, but I'll give my word that I'll keep pushing it as far as I can to keep the ball moving on it. Thank you.
Gamble. I will now put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 7.1, business reports for decision. Planning scheme amendment C104 GPLA Teesdale flood study post exhibition.
Don't forget me.
We'll try not to. I refer councillors to page 6 of the agenda for this report. Recommendation. Number 1, refer all submissions regarding the planning scheme amendment C104 GPLA Teesdale flood study to an independent planning panel pursuant to section 23 1B of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Number 2, authorise officers suitable persons to represent council at the planning panel hearing, generally in accordance with the response to submissions outlined in this report. Are there any questions? Cunningham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, if I may, to Director Wilson. Just confirmation, which I already have, but I just want to ask in the chamber that if this matter does go to the panel for an independent review, whatever decision or whatever consideration they make will come back to council, and then that will be discussed in the chamber at a future date.
Wilson?
Thank you. Through the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Yes, today's resolution is only to refer the matter to an independent planning panel. Recommendations will come back for further consideration by council at a later date.
Thank you. Thanks, Director.
Any other questions, councillors? Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Do I have a seconder? Robbins? Mover, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you very much. So this one is, this is one of the decisions that I speak to people about. We are fortunate to make a lot of decisions here as councillors, and speaking to one of the objectors in this process, I spoke to him about this decision. I firmly believe that this decision is one of the easiest decisions we have that's put in front of us as councillors. So what has happened up until this point is that we have to go through this process. It's been recommended to go through this process. We have officers that do their investigations, accumulate all the information, objectors put forward their information, and we're not making a decision here tonight. What we're saying is that we've still got all these issues that are outstanding, and we're sending it off to an independent panel. So there's an independent panel of experts there that are, with all due respect to myself and fellow councillors, far more intelligent than all of us in terms of making those decisions. That is their level of expertise. So that will go off to them. The objectors who have been through this process already will then have their opportunity to speak to those to the panel. I like to see them as the independent umpire, that they will go through the process. It's over quite a number of days, and then they will formulate a professional opinion back to us at a later date where we get to deliberate over that. But it's this is definitely, as I said, one of the easiest decisions as councillors, and it helps us make good decisions. Thank you.
Councillor Robbins, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, nothing to add, thank you.
Is there any councillors who would like to speak against the motion? Any who'd like to speak for the motion? Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you. Yeah, I do believe that I'll be supporting this to be forwarded to an independent panel. Also, I think one of the reasons that it needs to is the objectors did engage an independent report that outlined a number of questions and concerns regarding the methodology that was employed when the flood study was done. So reading through those objections and reports, as I say, I believe it'd be prudent to have the submission and report submitted to an independent panel. Thank you.
No other speakers. Councillor Sharkey, would you like to close?
I haven't put that to a vote, thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Shall we ask Councillor Gamble to return? To the gallery, if anyone wishes to leave, you may do so, and this will not affect, we will not be offended.
No.
Thank you. Gamble, it was voted unanimously to send it to a planning panel. Thank you. Item 7.2, P25158, 28 Jessie Way, Inverleigh. Variation to a restrictive covenant, AJ 633787Y, by varying Part 1. I refer councillors to page 16 of the agenda for this report. There is one person who has registered to make a public submission tonight. I would like to remind the submitter of the speaking time allocated being a maximum of 5 minutes, and I ask you to respect the time, please. An alarm will sound when your time has expired. 2 minutes will then be allocated for councillors to ask questions of the presenter. I note that this is not a time for debate. Wayne Peel, thank you.
Deputy Mayor and councillors, thank you for the opportunity to address the meeting. My name is Wayne Peel, son of the late Stuart and Margaret Peel. I am the 5th generation of the Peel family to live in Inverleigh. My sister Bronwyn and I strongly object to the removal of this covenant. The covenant was put in place by our late father Stuart. It was his wish that the landowners of the estate experience country living with room for a pool and to be able to play cricket or football in their own backyards, keep a few chooks, have a veggie garden and enjoy the rural environment to the fullest. We question the timing of the application, with it being announced in early December and a closing date of 5th of January 2025 for objections. It is a busy time with the festive season, holiday season, and people being away, and the council offices not being open through part of that. We've been informed that there were 30 registered letters sent out. We are questioning the process to inform all the current landowners. We know that some of the letters weren't received until after the closing date, not allowing enough time for objections. The letter we received wasn't registered, and what was the process to ensure all landowners received the letters? We would like to bring, all the current landowners have purchased their land with the knowledge of this covenant being in place. It is a unique place to live, and Lorraine and I are lucky to live in the estate. We're very happy. If this covenant is removed from the estate, we are concerned that it sets a negative precedent going against our late father's wishes. Bronwyn and I, as executors to our late father's estate, we implore you to reject this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peel. Is there any questions from the councillors?
Probably just a question to one of the officers, just in regards to one of the comments there with regards to part of the application there. We have received information that there was a solicitor engaged to send out those 33 notices. My understanding of the application is that all applicants received that registered post letter, and the suggestion there that some people didn't receive it. Probably more a question to an officer there.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Through you, Acting Mayor. There's no requirement to do registered post for this, but there were quite a number of people who were notified by mail. There was also a notification in the newspaper, and we sent out letters, and we have a sign on the site. So there was numerous ways that the community were notified of this application.
Is there any other questions, councillors? No, if not, thank you, Mr. Peel. Thank you. We have a recommendation before us that council resolves to notice a notice of decision to refuse to grant a permit for the application to vary restrictive covenant AJ 633787Y on the following grounds.
Actually,
It is read.
Thanks. I'd like to put forward an alternative
Yes, I
motion,
will in a minute. Is there any questions to Director Wilson, just regarding what's here, not the applicant, the objector? Any questions? No? Thank you. Okay, so do I have a mover for the recommendation?
Madam Mayor, I did put forward I did raise and put forward an alternative.
Yeah, before we had question time to the director. If you'd like to do it again, I'm happy to go with that. That's fine. Yep. That's all right. Okay, we have an alternative. Thank you.
I have circulated to all councillors on a pink slip there the alternative motion, which is in line with the officer recommendation. And I'll just read out point not on the screen. Is it? I'll read. I won't read out the whole thing and bore everyone, but I will just read out a couple of points of difference, which is point 1.
Excuse me, sorry. We need to have a seconder first before you go into that.
I'll second it for the point of discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Phelan. Okay, so if you'd like to, I will acknowledge your second, but if you'd like to speak to it, thank you.
I'm going to read out the changes to the motion.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. Yes.
So just the changes to the motion. So the motion reads as it is by the recommendation. This permit allows the variation. So this permit allows the variation of a restricted covenant by altering part of the covenant to read as follows: any more than one dwelling house and a small second dwelling as it is defined by the planning scheme. Any dwelling, point B, any dwelling excluding a small second dwelling house unless 65% of the external walls, excluding windows, shall be constructed of brick, brick veneer, stone, weatherboard or like material. Point C, any dwelling house except a small second dwelling unless the gross floor area, excluding verandas and attached garage or carport, shall not be less than 150 square metres. Any dwelling house excepting a small second dwelling relocated from any other place whatever. So just those points in red of the changes to the existing recommendation.
Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Am I right? Thanks, Madam.
Yep. Sorry, Mover, would you like to speak to it
Yes,
now?
please. Thank you very much. Councillors, I called this item in to gain a greater understanding of covenants. I must admit I'm confused by covenants. We as councillors have lifted countless covenants in the past. We've lifted them, we've removed them, and on my time in council, it has led me to the understanding that covenants aren't as sacred as they once were. And I will read out a section here. The Pollock versus Golden Plains Shire Council decision has implications for Council's current approach to the assessment of applications for the variation or removal of restricted covenants applied to private residential land post-1991. The Council's test to what constitutes an unacceptable impact with regards to financial loss, loss of amenity, loss arising from the change to the character of neighbourhood or any other material detriment as a consequence of the variation or the removal must be carefully reconsidered. A greater emphasis on an assessment of site-specific elements of each proposal is the obvious response to the latest VCAT decision, which dates 2016. It's that level of detail and it's that level of education that I've received from officers that sort of led me to call this in to gain a better understanding. The objectors in this case, I want to highlight several times, this motion is not lifting a covenant. It's not lifting the covenant. It's not... This is probably one of the only ones I've seen at council that's come to us that isn't the thin end of a wedge in regards to a subdivision. This covenant that I've put forward here is a variation, just varying it, so a household can put a small second dwelling. So under the planning scheme, a building with a gross floor area of 60 square metres or less on the same lot as an existing dwelling and used as a self-contained residence, which must include a kitchen sink, food preparation, a bath or shower and a toilet wash basin. So I suspect most people here have been into these new second dwellings which the state government has put across and taken away the planning controls on that to aid the housing crisis that we're in. 60 square metres is typically 1 to 2 bedrooms, a kitchen. It's a tiny home. It's a small area. The point of the objection which we must speak to on this is the loss arising from the change of character of the neighbourhood. That's the objection, and that's the classification there. That element, in my opinion, in this estate has been lost. So we've got 33 notifications have gone out, 33 beneficiaries. Of those beneficiaries, we received no objections except from one from a landowner that owns several blocks in there. Of the several blocks that they own, they are 1 acre blocks. So in this area, in this subdivision, we have 2.5 acre blocks, which this block is. So 2.5 acres, 1 house. The 1 acre blocks, which neighbour these blocks, 3 acres, you can put 3 houses on it. So putting a small second dwelling of 60 square metres, in my personal opinion, is not going to hold up in VCAT, and we can't go to VCAT and argue that this is a change of character. The change of character is gone when we went down to 1 acre blocks in that area. This is a family that is looking for a small second dwelling. Most people in the state of Victoria have the option to do this. This is a covenant that's been put on the property by the developers. Again, I want to emphasise we're not lifting the covenant. This isn't the thin end of the wedge of a subdivision. My understanding of the application was that a solicitor was engaged to send out all the applications.
Excuse me, Councillor Sharkey.
Yep.
I just asked the councillors, would you like an extension of time?
I'll sum up in 10 seconds. Thank you very much. So it's with those things, and I wish that councillors consider this. Again, I don't think we're making a huge change here. Thank you very much.
Councillor Dillon, would you like to speak?
I was to reserve my right.
Thank you. No worries. Are there any councillors who'd like to speak against the motion? Councillor Cunningham.
I refer back to the previous matter we discussed, the Teesdale flood study, and a councillor mentioned it's a very easy decision. This matter is also a very easy decision. The people that work in our planning department are more experienced than us, more knowledgeable, and they clearly state here the issue a decision to refuse to grant a permit based on, which is recommended by the officers, this application is not considered to satisfy the provisions of the Golden Plains scheme or matters required to be considered under the planning environment. I've actually had other people that live in that area have contacted me, and they have spoken to me, and they have told me that when they bought into this area, they bought in knowing that their house would be the only house in that area. That is it. It's quite, the covenant is there. People that buy into that area are fully aware that the covenant is in place. Once you change this, you open up Pandora's box because you set a precedent. This area in Inverleigh, people move out there because of the country feel, and they know that, you know, when you buy a property, you do your research, it's got a covenant on it. And I know the Peel family, and I know when Stuart did this, it was his belief that he wanted that property near the Inverleigh Golf Club to remain as it is. And I don't think it's up to this council to make decisions for people to change their lifestyle. So I will be supporting the officer's recommendation to refuse to grant a permit.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak for the motion? Councillor Gamble.
Thank you. Well, I support greater housing diversity in general, and I think this alternative motion supports that basic concept. I note that we lack any lifestyle village options in our shire, and I believe this variation will provide options for people and families to not have to move out of the shire. I point out this is not a subdivision, it's on a hectare-sized block, which is pretty significant. I support this variation and believe it is in keeping with the state government intent of permitting this sort of housing provision, because there are a lot more pressures on housing and families, and you know, just having these options is really important for people's well-being. The fact the vast majority of neighbours did not object, even acknowledging there's probably been imperfections with mail-outs and contacts, so I acknowledge that happens, but I I think if it was a serious concern, it would have got around and we'd be flooded with objections. I don't believe it will bring down value. The VCAT ruling legal barrier, as referred in the documents, relates to 2011 decisions. So I think this is potentially up for review and could well be overturned. I think the claim of potential detriment to the character and amenity of the area is not as great. Just my personal observation in the area. I did ask about a potential amendment to see if those potential small houses could be, we could put controls on it such as landscaping and neutral colours, sympathetic to existing buildings. But I've been advised that we don't have the power to do that, unfortunately. However, I do support this alternative recommendation.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak for the motion? Against, sorry, thank you.
This item relates to an application to vary a restrictive covenant to enable the construction of a granny flat. A beneficiary of the covenant has objected to the variation. As a general rule, I wholeheartedly support the objectives of increasing housing supply and diversity, and I acknowledge that the point that Councillor Sharkey made about that was compelling, but that is not the question before Council. The question is whether to permit the variation of a restrictive covenant without the consent of a beneficiary. That is to say, whether Council should set aside a private agreement between landholders and vary a property right of the beneficiary that was created by that agreement. Council should only grant the permit if it is satisfied that the beneficiary is unlikely to suffer any material detriment. The beneficiary has an interest in 9 properties that benefit from the covenant. This covenant achieves a neighbourhood character outcome in that it imposes certain uniformity of dwelling size, density and construction, which can be a selling point for potential buyers. I'm not convinced that it is unlikely the beneficiary will suffer any material detriment if the permit is granted. This case is distinguished from the case of Pavlak, which Councillor Sharkey mentioned, because the neighbourhood character in that case was found to be no longer intact, whereas in this case I understand it is still intact. If the Victorian planning provisions were amended to guide councils to consider setting aside or varying restrictive covenants in circumstances where it would contribute to increasing housing supply and diversity, I would welcome that change. But as it stands, I believe we would be stepping outside the bounds of our authority if we were to grant the permit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support the motion in the sense that housing is an issue today that is Australia-wide, not just in Victoria. If we have the opportunity to let someone have it, it's only varying the covenant to allow this to happen. It's not open slather, and it's just a variation so somebody can have a smaller dwelling on this property. And I think on 2.5 acre blocks, I don't think it's a real issue. And the fact of the matter, that lots of people today are living on 300 and 400 square metre blocks. So it's a family decision. It's not as though they're selling it off to somebody else. There's a family that wanted to use this dwelling to house somebody of their own. So I support the motion, but I understand that the original covenant. But I think when at day's end, covenants will be one of those things when land becomes really unavailable for homes, there's going to be a real issue, and I think that there's an issue here. Thank you.
Councillor Phelan. Mover, do you wish to close?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the debate and conversation. I just want to highlight a couple of things from a couple of points. The objectors are given a notification they're allowed 21 days. That's to comply with that, but they still had up until today to formally put in their objections. So by me calling this in has extended that time period. So anyone that has had an issue with it, or if the council, if they are objectors contacting individual councillors, I would strongly recommend to contact officers, because you can object to any application right up until the point of determination. So just want to make that very clear. This variation does work within the planning scheme. We are not changing something hugely significant. If there was no objections received, this recommendation that I'm putting forward would be what officers would be recommending. Council over the last few years has received 41 applications for decisions relating to covenant variations. 35 out of those 41 have received variations to the covenant since the 1st of April 2022. I, as a councillor, feel that my responsibility with my planning application hat on, or as a planner, must stay consistent with my decisions. So the reason that I'm putting this forward and going through is to remain consistent. This council has previously made decisions to lift covenants. We've all been part here of lifting covenants on other blocks against officer recommendations. So we're not setting the precedent. It's not the first time that that's going to happen. Our role is to play the mediator, and in this circumstance I don't feel there's any financial loss. I don't feel that there's no longer any the acronym of the area, given that there's already 1 acre blocks there. I don't feel that this is changing the outcome, and this variation of covenant applies to one single dwelling. If the neighbour or anyone else in the area wants to do what this is, they have to go through this process, and it is far from opening Pandora's box. Thank you very much.
Sharkey. Before we go to the vote, I'd like to ask a question of Director Wilson. Because this is going to be a separate unit for an elderly person, I would assume an elderly person, is there anything in our planning scheme that would allow an extension of a house to then have an extra bedroom, toilet, shower, rather than an individual house on the property?
Thank you, Mayor. There'd be nothing to stop someone putting in an application to get a permit to do something like that. That wouldn't be classed as a second dwelling on the property. That would be classed as an extension of an existing house and a renovation to that house. So that would still be the one dwelling on the property.
I will now put the vote. All those in favour? All those against? We now have an equal amount. I will then cast my vote against. 4-3, so we will now go back to the original motion. Do I have a mover for the original motion? Councillor Robbins. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Robbins, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think I've probably spoken enough about this one already.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Nothing else to add, but once again, as I say, I'll be supporting the officer recommendation. I can see it from both sides, but I just feel that when you buy into properties, you know there's a covenant on it that's in place, and at this point of time, I take on board what Councillor Phelan said and Councillor Sharkey, but I think at this point of time, we should just leave this one as the recommendation which is put in front of us, which is to refuse to grant a permit. Thank you.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? Councillor Sharkey?
Yeah, I'll be brief because I only ended up repeating myself. But it is look at it. By calling this in, councillors, it is good to have these conversations and these debates in a public forum. I'm of the strong opinion that it is extremely disappointing that we've got 33 beneficiaries. One beneficiary who doesn't live there, that is an overarching developer, has stopped somebody doing what the state government and every single person in this room wants, and that is to create better housing in the state of Victoria. And we, as the responsible authority, have that delegated power to do that. So it's a shame that that won't eventuate for these people. I'm of a very strong opinion that that heads off to VCAT, we'll see a different decision, but we'll see that. But I respect the debate, and thank you very much.
Anyone who'd like to speak for it, for the motion? Against? If not, Councillor Robbins, would you like to close?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate that if the Victorian planning provisions were amended to guide councils to consider setting aside or varying restrictive covenants in these sorts of circumstances, I would welcome that change. As Councillor Sharkey said, all of us want more housing supply and diversity. I just think that in this case, it's not proper for us to consider that. Thank you.
We'll then put the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item 7.3, Draft Council Plan 2025 to 2029. I refer councillors to page 28 of the agenda for this report. The recommendation that Council endorses the Draft Council Plan 25 to 29, Attachment 1, to be made available for public exhibition and submission from the 1st of May 2025 until the 28th of May 2025. Are there any questions? There are no questions. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Do I have a seconder?
I'll second. No.
Right, Councillor Phelan, not a problem.
Okay.
All good.
Mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yep. This plan has been informed by a number of community workshops and engagement activities to understand what our community wants to see us focus on for the next 4 years. And councillors have also had opportunities to contribute to the plan's strategic objectives. So, yeah, happy to support the recommendation for this one.
Councillor Phelan.
Well, there's a lot, just in second emotion, there's a lot of work gone into it. We've done a lot of research before this council even came here, was elected, and now it's time to go out to the people to comment. I think it's been really well prepared, and we'll have submissions on it, and then we can adopt it.
Is there any councillor who'd like to speak against the motion? Any councillor who would like to speak for the motion? If not, thank you. Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, I'd like to start by thanking the many community members who constructively engaged in this development of this plan in particular, and the officers too have put in a lot of time and effort to work on it. I know it's out for engagement for the basically the month of May, and I note also that this plan has been built on the back of Council's decision to refresh the community vision. We didn't have to, but we decided that that was important given the changes in, because of COVID basically, has to see what sort of changes may have come through in what people wanted in their council plan and their community vision. Anyway, this is a guiding document that is in itself, it's based on deliberative engagement. I thought it'd be worth just pointing out that deliberative engagement is a structured approach to decision making that prioritises informed discussion and reasoned debate among representative customers or community members. It goes beyond consultation or information sharing. So it's really designed to be as in-depth as possible. So also it involved councillor engagement, and officers looked at our priorities, and we've had workshops on the developing this. And a really strong part for me is the health and wellbeing priorities, with things such as the climate changes and impacts on health. There could be, given this is going out for the further engagement, then there could be other items such as the that were such as biodiversity emergency with preventing of local extinctions, such as koalas and turtles, and further work in community infrastructure like we already discussed tonight. But I accept this is a community and council-driven document that reflects the majority views. I note also the attachment is not the finished document graphically, and but the text will be the same. I encourage written submissions from individuals and community groups and support the recommendation to the community. Thank you.
Gamble. Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak against the motion? Right, Councillor Robbins, if you'd like to.
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All of those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.4, Municipal Early Years and Children's Plan, the MEYCP 2025 to 2029. I refer councillors to page 34 of the agenda for this report. Recommendation that Council endorse the draft Municipal Early Years Plan 2025 to 2029. Are there any questions, councillors? No questions. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Cunningham. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gamble. Mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I'd firstly, on behalf of all the councillors, I suppose, and the community, thank Director Wilson and her team for the work that goes into this. The plan is an extremely important document that assists with giving councils forward planning and delivery of the required services and programs for young children and families. Also to note, the draft plan now includes children from 6 to 12 years of age. Especially coming out of COVID, we had a lot of families with established children moving into the area, so it's very important that we look after that demographic of age groups. So I'm more than happy to support the officer's recommendation to endorse the plan to public exhibition. Thank you.
The motion.
Yeah, thank you. Just recognising the services offered in this area are very complex. It involves a lot of different organisations, and the responsibility is great. Also, it's doing profoundly good work in our community, the officers in this field, backed up by agencies and stakeholders with the internal and external providers and complex grant and funding arrangements. So the work and reach out of these workers and officers do in this field can make literally a life or death difference, focusing on support and the well-being of children and families at an early age. When I've had more sort of closer briefings from officers more recently and in the past, it's been really impressive, and it's a very difficult and challenging area at times, so all credit to the officers that work in this area. They can make massive differences to people's and families' lives, and particularly young children. So, especially in this time now with the cost of living crisis that is generally borne by young families, it's especially important. So, I was pretty impressed with this document because I'll just go over the four main themes, being health and well-being, education and learning, diversity and inclusion, and social and community. So, yeah, very impressive plan. And once again, it's a plan out for exhibition, and I commend it to people to have a look at and comment on, reflect on, and perhaps even offer some improvements or recognise something that may have been not quite right in this complex area. Thank you.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? Anyone who'd like to speak for the motion? If not, would you like to close, Councillor Cunningham?
Nothing much else to add there. I think it's. I think Councillor Councillor Gamble spoke very well there, so no, I'm more than happy to leave it as it is and support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll then put the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 7.5, endorsement of rating differential option for community consultation. I refer councillors to page 38 of the agenda for this report. The recommendation that council endorse the following rating differential option as its preferred option for community consultation. A, the municipal charge reduced to $200. B, the farm differentials consolidated into one differential rate. C, the farming differential rate be reduced to 80%. D, residential differential to remain at 100%. E, business, industrial and commercial differential to remain at 100%. F, business, industrial and commercial Bannockburn to remain at 130%. G, non-farm vacant land to remain at 205%. And H, non-developable vacant land to remain at 100%. Number 2 notes that community consultation will occur from the 24th of April 2025 to the 8th of May 2025. Number 3 notes that the officers will include the preferred rating differential option as per clause 1 above in the draft 2025-26 budget to be presented to council for adoption at the 27th of May council meeting. Are there any questions?
I'd like to make one comment on the farm differential. I believe that was 75, it's 80%, but I'd like to see it at 75.
Are there any other questions, councillors? I think that will, just referring to that question, if you may, you might like to speak to that, Mr. CEO.
Well, I would suggest maybe rather than taking it as a question, Councillor Phelan might like to move to that effect.
I'll move a motion that the farm differential rate be reduced to 75%.
That sounds like an amendment.
Yes.
We will need a resolution on all of those points A to H. So we can, one potential way is for a councillor to move that and for Councillor Phelan to move an amendment, or for Councillor Phelan to move A to H with his proposed, with C being at 75 rather than 80.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Robbins? Ellen, would you like to speak?
Thank
to
you.
it? Yep.
Yep. I think this is going out to consultation to the community, so people have got the opportunity to comment on it and put submissions into this municipality before it's adopted on the 27th of May. So this is just going out there for people to read, have a look at, and then make comment. And I just recommend it to them to study it closely and make comments as they want to.
Seconder, Councillor Robbins, would you like to speak to it?
I think we all understand that a number of large farming properties were hit with substantial increases in their rates bill last year, and that there's a lever we can pull, which is to reduce the farm rate differential, which Des is proposing, which Councillor Phelan is proposing to do. That'll mean that farmers pay less, but it will also mean that other categories of ratepayers pay more. So I just wanted to talk about some of the other points that are in the recommendation, which is the municipal charge being reduced to $200. A municipal charge operates as a regressive tax, meaning that low-valued properties are taxed at a higher percentage of their value compared to high-valued properties. While property value isn't a perfect proxy indicator for capacity to pay, I don't think it's a controversial statement that a higher municipal charge disproportionately burdens low-income households. So we've proposed to lower the municipal charge so that the lowest valued residential properties are not picking up the tab for reducing the farmers' rates. I just also wanted to address the point of consolidating the farm differentials into one differential rate. The reason we've done that is the intensive farming category, there's very few rateable properties that are fitting into that category, and so it doesn't make a huge difference. It just makes us have a more complex rating strategy to have that extra category. And we also didn't really have a well-documented justification for keeping them separate. That's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? Councillor Gamble?
Yes, I would. I think the figures we've been given show that the gross product of farming has increased by 50% over the last, not the last year, but the 3 years previously, which indicates very good years for farmers. And given my main guiding principle is capacity to pay and fairness, I think that those that's a significant factor, especially with the figures for the upcoming winter season. The next 6-month forecast, which I circulated to councillors, shows that the rain forecast is neutral to wetter. So that should give some good hope for good harvests this year at least. And I don't think farmers should be able to generate significant money just from that coming up. I do think that those levers that we have with the differentials in farming should be respected, because intensive farming is quite different from broadacre farming. And sure, there might be like smaller numbers now, but they are increasing, and they're subject to different climate conditions, etc. So I think it's important that we keep that difference, recognise the different types of industry that they are. We don't have many other categories that other shires have already anyway, so I don't think there's any harm in us. I don't think there's any pressure for us to have to put them all into one bundle, so to speak. I just foreshadowed that I'd be looking at reducing, I'll say this, however, I'm looking at foreshadowing to reduce the broadacre farming rate to 85%.
Or anyone who'd like to speak for the motion? Councillor Sharkey?
May I have the opportunity to put forward an amendment to the motion? Yeah, just to introduce a new differential in there, which would be set at 90% for all properties outside of Bannockburn.
Yep.
Complement the existing motion.
75%.
With just an amendment to the motion of a differential rate of 90% for all township houses, for all residential rate of 90% for all properties outside of Bannockburn.
Can I possibly ask clarification for the reasoning, the rationale? Is that possible? We can do that or not?
Second it for discussion. I'm happy to
Second it for discussion.
I speak.
Yep. Thank you very much. Setting the differentials is a hard one. You're starting to see a debate there. The consultation process will ultimately help in aiding our way forward. The introduction of a 90% rate is offering a 10% reduction in rates for houses outside of Bannockburn. We all know and we appreciate there's a lot of councils across Victoria. There are peri-urban councils like us, semi-rural councils that offer a discount to residential properties outside the main township. I'll use our neighbouring G21 neighbour, Colac, as an example, where the township of Colac itself has a differential rate higher than the rest of the Shire. The reason and the rationale behind that is, as I've discussed at briefings, we know that there's a lot of people in the Shire that constantly say Bannockburn get everything, Bannockburn get this, Bannockburn get that, and we all know and appreciate that forever Bannockburn will probably get most things that we advocate for. That is where the population is. From an amenities and from people paying their rates, the common feedback I get from people, I'm paying, what do I get for my rates? People living in Bannockburn can walk with their kids in a pram to the local library. They have footpaths, they have curb and channel. The rest of the Shire are expected to pay for their curb and channel. Bannockburn gets that. There's countless examples. We've got a splash park here in Bannockburn that costs us thousands of dollars per day to run. Residents in Dereel, Smyesdale do not have, they have access to that, but it is challenging with the distance, tyranny of distance. So introducing that differential is in line with other councils, and it aids in telling a story to the community that we appreciate Bannockburn get an awful lot more in services and amenities than 55 small townships across the Shire. Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham, would you like to speak to the motion? Thank you.
I'll probably end up speaking against the motion. Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate that. I think what we're putting out, I think we've taken on board that it has been a hard year for farmers, so we've reduced it from 87 to 80%.
Point of order.
I'm getting to it. I take Councillor Sharkey's...
1 minute.
Point of order, what's been said is irrelevant to the amendment.
Right, so the amendment would be, I feel that people in Bannockburn, their access to services are reflected in the rates that they pay. So I'd imagine the people that live in Bannockburn pay significantly more rates than people that may be living in other parts of the Shire. Now, I know when I lived in Teesdale, I realised that my rates were cheaper because I didn't have all the accesses to things that people got in Bannockburn, but that was a decision that people make. So I don't think it's a fair argument to say that Bannockburn gets everything based on the population, correct. But then again, as I say, if you lived in other parts of the Shire, I'm sure that your rates would be a lot cheaper to reflect that you don't have access to those services. So I don't think it's, yeah, so I'd leave it at that, thanks.
Anyone else who'd like to speak against the motion?
Yes, I'd like to speak to the motion because I think fundamentally it's putting Bannockburn rates up. I'm not sure exactly how much, but probably the 130% sort of area. I think it's fundamentally divisive to have cheaper differential rates for different housing areas in the Shire. I think you could also argue maybe we should have increased rates for especially waste services for people that live on remote properties, given that they cost more to service, perhaps maybe 2 or 3 times as much as in Bannockburn. Similarly, maybe we should have a differential to increase rates to towns that are closest to the cities because they benefit most from the services. And Councillor Sharkey often refers to why do we need things such as a pool when we're close to Geelong, when therefore maybe Batesford residents should pay
Madam Mayor,
extra.
Point of order, outline irrelevant and improper.
Okay, I withdraw that, but my point remains, it's divisive, and I'd also like to add that people in Bannockburn generally represent the younger families with mortgages that are probably having the most mortgage stress or financial stresses, and I think to slug them as an extra rates compared to other people is not the right thing to do. Thank you.
Campbell. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for the... If not, would you like to...
Yeah, thanks very much. And look, I appreciate there's different ranges. What I'm also trying to do here, councillors, tonight is bring into this chamber the conversations that we're having at briefing days. There's the suggestion of giving the Shire a 10% reduction or paying 10% less on their CIV rate, I think is more than fair and reasonable. If it was taken off to the state government, there's other councils that do it. So what I'm put forward isn't a new idea. It's not come out of my brain in the middle of the night. It is based on what other councillors are doing. The notion that it is diversive, the rating scheme is, well, whatever decision we come, we're going to annoy farmers, we're going to annoy business, we're going to annoy industry and all that. I think there's a strong argument there. There's a point in time where this will come in. I would like this to go out for public consultation. Appreciating we're not making a decision on this tonight, but yeah, I'd very much believe that having that component in this would aid in having some public consultation from members of the public to give their opinion on what we all think is right or wrong. Thank you.
Vote. All those in favour of the amendment?
Can I have clarity of the wording of the amendment, please?
So the amendment, as I would understand it, would be that in point C, in D, 1D, in the recommendation, it would say the residential differential to remain at 100% in Bannockburn and reduced to 90% elsewhere.
Vote. All those in favour? Those against? Lost. Okay, we'll go back now to the original recommendation. The second one, sorry, that Councillor Phelan has moved. So would anyone like to speak for it? And the recommendation is that the alternative is a 75% reduction to the farm rate. That was all, wasn't it? Is there anyone who'd like to speak against it? Campbell?
To repeat my what I said before, that I think the farming sector is doing quite well.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Councillor Gamble's spoken on this item already.
I am introducing a new point, however.
No, you've already had your turn. Sorry, Councillor Gamble. Is there someone else who'd like to speak for the motion? Councillor Sharkey.
Thank you very much. This is a really hard... The amendment, the new motion that has been put forward by Councillor Phelan and Councillor Robbins has just gone up and quickly grabbed a lever and sort of said, let's go to 75% for the farmers. Not one councillor in this room knows the ramifications of what that's done. So they just pulled the lever nobody in this room can answer how that has affected everyone else. So for us, or for me making my decision tonight, it's very hard to just support that without having the data to see what it looks like. So I think if this motion was going, if this was our decision, I think I'd absolutely struggle to support it. Without seeing that, I'd be probably looking forward for a deferral. But appreciating this is going for community consultation, and it is difficult because this is now our preferred option, but I will be reserving my right to fight for change. We're going out for public consultation on this for a couple of weeks. It is, and I have expressed in briefings that this is extremely rushed. I don't believe that this should be done in our first year. Well, we've got so much going on, but here we are. There's a lot more that we can do there. Councillor Robbins' comments with regards to the consolidation of the couple of the farming rates is good. There's only a few residents there that are affected, but it stops the story that our rating is telling. And I know the numbers don't change for us looking at it from an elevated view, but there was in this there now is about 75, 80 farmers that are going to receive a 25% discount on their rates last year. They were paying 100%, now they're getting a 25% discount, and they live in a property that's on 40 acres. Now, I know it's a small number, it's insignificant, but one has to ask the question, why do those people deserve a 25% discount? The farmers on 40 acres, they're no different to a property in most areas in our shire. So our rating strategy also, in my opinion, we need to be telling a story. It mightn't alter some of the differentials mightn't change the numbers, but it helps sell a story. And I think we've overlooked that, and hopefully that comes out in community consultation. The best time to do community consultation is a week after the rates notice has gone out. That is when we'll get the best community consultation. We know last year that farmers were some of the most affected by it. So we do know and appreciate we need to do something there, but I'm not convinced this is the best thing that we could do. The municipal charge is one where we've reduced it and we've said to the farmers, now here's a discount. We've given them a discount with one hand and then we're slapping them with a municipal charge the way it is. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Look, the issue is that the farmers out there were really fleeced last year, the big farmers, and they cost a lot of money. And as far as Councillor Gamble was saying, he said about the income, this has got nothing to do with income. We pay income tax on income. This is a land tax. And what I'm saying to you is that we don't go to residents in Bannockburn and find out what their income is before we strike it. As far as the rain's concerned, we've had rain forecast for the last 6 months and we've had none. Last weekend we were supposed to get 30 mil and we got none. They're talking about rain this weekend. And as far as to say that the farmers are going to do really well, if you drive out in the Western District of this municipality, it is absolute drought. Bare, people are buying food, they've got no water, it's really devastating. And we have got to show some compassion to the people that really work hard. We go back to Councillor Sharkey's motion about the 90% win or lose, but the fact of the matter is, and Councillor Cunningham said about the people in Bannockburn, the people out there get next to nothing for the money they pay, and they're paying thousands, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 rates. Their roads are falling apart, and if we can't show some compassion to those people, I think this place should have a really good look at itself, because those people out there are really feeling the pinch.
I'll then put it to the vote. All those in favour of a reduced reduction for the farming differential rate, item C, down to 75%. Recommendation as printed with that. Yeah, with that amendment. Thank you. So all those in favour? Those against? We look at that for that going out for community consultation now, and it'll be good to see some responses and some good feedback. Thank you. I will now move to item 7.6, Financial Hardship Policy Update. I refer councillors to page 41 of the agenda of the report. The recommendation is that Council review and endorse the updated financial hardship policy. Are there any questions? There's no questions. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Cunningham. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Robbins. Mover, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I think this is a little bit procedural, but the item relates to the review of the financial hardship policy update, which has been done so accordingly, I understand, in line of applicable legislation. So I'm supportive of the policy being reviewed and endorsed. And I also think it's very important and timely during the current financial crisis that we've just spoken about, that many of our residents may find themselves in. And I definitely think Council has a role to, when required and if possible, to help some people within our shire. Thank you.
Robbins, would you like to speak?
This item relates to small but meaningful changes to the hardship policy relating to how Council will support ratepayers experiencing difficult financial circumstances, and the changes mostly clarify the support that is available.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? Or if not,
Just
Sharkey.
thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just very quickly, I do want the hardship policy is there in place. I'd like to acknowledge some of the feedback that I get from a lot of community members that might not be necessarily struggling to get the money, but sort of struggling to get their household in order. So the staff, the feedback I get with regards to the staff and those that work in the rating department to help people, whether it's get down to a weekly repayment, monthly repayment, they do an exceptional job and are very heartfelt when they do that. So feedback I've had from many residents in that regard is second to none. So I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the people that work behind the scenes on that. They do a fantastic job. Thank you.
No one has gone against, so we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.7, Climate Emergency Plan, Annual Progress Report 2023 to 2024. I refer councillors to page 44 of the agenda for this report. The recommendation, number 1, note the Climate Emergency Plan Annual Progress Report. Item 2, endorse the recommendation to revise Council's corporate net zero emissions target from 2025 to 2032, noting the existing target has elapsed due to challenges with the implementation. Number 3, endorse the public summary report for publication on Council's website. Are there any questions, councillors? There are no questions. Do I have a mover to the recommendation? Councillor Gamble. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Robbins. Thank you, mover. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Well, firstly, thanks to the officers for producing the report. There's been some good progress made, and great we have a framework and a plan. It's a pity, however, that our climate emergency or action plan can't be resourced or supported more. As the report states, as an organisation, we, like other rural councils, quote, are constrained in our ability to directly fund all initiatives. It is clear to meet current and future challenges. Federal and state government need to explicitly recognise and actively support the role that local government plays. Nevertheless, all local governments have a special role to play. Adults need to show leadership and to care about the future, our kids' future, humanity's future. Our council going forward needs to put more resources and budget into addressing and helping, leading and facilitating local people and businesses to adapt, transition to a safer, less catastrophic world and future that we're facing. Things are not just going to work out business as usual. While the extent of progress and actions at Golden Plains Shire level has been limited, e.g. we don't have a dedicated officer or any electric vehicles, we can be proud of the investment and construction of a significant wind farms in our Shire which are producing massive amounts of clean energy and providing income for farmers in the community. Did you know the greatest time for the onset of mental health issues is adolescence and younger? And our kids are experiencing anxiety like no other generation before them. Research shows kids distress more in what's happening in nature and the environment and climate change than even wars. This kind of chronic stress is really detrimental to health and life expectancy. Chronic stress destroys the immune system, particularly when we don't have control or agency. As adults and supposedly responsible people in control, it is so important for adolescent and youth mental health that we do positive actions. We give kids agency, for example, examples of good ways to tackle the future issues, and we have faith and show commitment to tackle the climate emergency. Thank you.
Campbell. Councillor Robbins, would you like to speak?
As Councillor Gamble mentioned, there have been some key achievements around emissions reductions and responsible water use. There have also been some pretty significant limitations. It's a pretty ambitious plan on the whole, and we're not going to achieve everything that's in it without sufficient resources and ownership of actions by all departments across council. So it's disappointing that we've had to move the goalposts as far as the targets, but it takes resources to achieve these outcomes. Thank you.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? Would you like your right to reply, to sum up? Thank you.
Yeah, just to emphasise once again the importance of acting in this field, not just for to create real difference, and to have like an officer that can work with schools and things is really important as well. And to have those partnerships with organisations like educational systems and Geelong Sustainability. For example, we no longer do the Geelong Sustainable House Day, which I think was a really good thing, and it was a particularly great benefit that we were part of it, so that our people in our Shire could see the best examples of what can be done. So just a bit more money in this area can make a big difference. Thank you.
I'll just to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.8, Instrument of Delegation, Council to Council Staff, S6. I refer councillors to page 49 of the agenda for this report. The recommendation is in the...
Happy to put the motion.
Thank you.
Happy to move the motion on that. And
we have a seconder. Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Sharkey, would you like to speak to it?
it's a procedural motion, and happy to put it to vote if...
Did anyone want to speak against the motion? If not, we'll put the vote. All in favour? Carried. Item 7.9, Response to Notice of Motion, Independence Roads Review and Report. I refer councillors to page 52 of the agenda for this report. The recommendation that council, number 1, note the independent reviews and training related to maintenance of council's road and drainage network that has taken place and the improvements completed or underway. Number 2, note the engagement of an independent consultant to undertake a road service review and prepare a report for council is estimated to cost between $60,000 and $70,000. Are there any questions? There are no questions. Do I have a mover? Markey. Do I have a seconder? Robbins? If you wish to speak to the motion.
Thanks very much. This is the response to the notice of motion that I brought to Council a number of months ago. And I feel my notice of motion has achieved quite a considerable amount. It has raised a discussion around here. The report that's presented to us and the discussions that we had there really highlights the amount of work that Council is doing. I'm quite surprised by a lot of the comments in here that's there. I don't think that they've sort of fed through to us on briefings enough. So it's good to get it all sort of compiled in the manner that we have to sort of see and address the amount of work that is being done out there. I think that we as councillors probably don't have a strong appreciation for the results because we're the forefront of the community and we're getting a lot of kickback from people, as Councillor Phelan raised there before, about people out there on a lot of dirt roads and suffering from potholes, corrugation and things like that. So it is... So this motion, the recommendation here, we are just noting that, but I do like to highlight the conclusion, and there was options there presented to us to support that, and by putting this into the budget. But I still believe that we as councillors still have that ability or can have that conversation. So I'll just read out the conclusion of this report, which was quite positive. Over the last 3 or 4 years, a significant amount of work has been undertaken to bring in independent reviews and training related to the maintenance of Council's road and drainage network. The engagement of an independent consultant to undertake a road service review and prepare a report for Council estimated at between $60,000 or $70,000 would further complement the work undertaken to date and potentially lead to further efficiencies and improvements. And ultimately, councillors, that's what we should be looking for when we spend ratepayers' money in the budget, and that is efficiencies and improvements. There's no point just getting consultants in and spending tens of thousands of dollars if there's not going to be results there. So having had some very fruitful conversations with Director Josipovic in regards to this, it's definitely something that's worthy of further conversation with us. The challenge is we have to take $60,000, $70,000 out of somebody's pocket, whether it's whatever. So that's the challenge for us. It'd be great to simply increase rates a little bit and cover that, but we're in a rating review area, so we need to look at these things strategically. And I think the conversations we have around the budget going forward would be, can we find that 60 or 70? Where does it come from? And is that a better use of spending? So the report there clearly identifies that it is a good investment of money. It's just finding the money that's the difficult part. Thank you very much.
Councillor Robbins, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'll just say that it is quite an interesting report if people would like to go and read it. There's been quite a few continuous improvement activities over time. And just noting that the motion before us is to note that the engagement of a consultant would cost $60,000 to $70,000. So it's not, the motion is not to go ahead and engage that consultant, but just to note the cost, and then we'll have that discussion as part of our budget discussions.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? Councillor Gamble.
The report basically outlines its qualified advantage of spending this 60 to 80,000, which is a significant amount, is quote room for improvement. But it's basically a independent report would basically be replication of strategic reviews that are itemised in this report that are just already happened and already happening. There's already a process there of continual review, strategic reviews done, and I don't think we're going to get much great benefit from this. We have independent analysis of our roads already I have confidence in the way that we're running this, and the fact that we do have defects and problems with the road. It's not so much because we don't know what can be done more or how to improve things. It's just that there are resource limitations which could be better rectified with an extra $60,000 or $80,000 rather than having more sort of reviews and assessments and consultants involved. Thank you.
Anyone who'd like to speak for the motion?
Yeah, I support the motion. I'm a bit concerned about the 60 or 70,000 to get the consultant to work. But I think what we've really got to look at is the way that we are doing our road network and the way we're maintaining it. If this 60 and 70,000 is going to improve the way we maintain our road, I'm fully for it. But right now we seem to have a deficiency in the way we handle our roads, and I think that a lot of the problems we have with our roads are because we haven't graded shoulders properly and all that type of thing. So I'm not having a go at anybody, and the money only goes a certain amount of the way. What I'm saying is, if we're not going to get full value out of $70,000, we're better to spend it on fixing up some of the problems. So there's I'm a bit unsure where to go here, but I am sure that we've got to do a lot of work or a lot of consulting to try and get our roads back to some sort of condition.
Now, so if you'd like to close, Councillor Sharkey.
Thank you very much. Just firstly, Councillor Field and Councillor Gamble, just to reiterate that we're just noting this, so we're not spending $60,000. We're just noting it. I've really enjoyed the read. I must admit I've got to go back and read it another couple of times. It is quite in depth. There's a lot of information in there. This is a service review that council officers want. So council officers go through budget bids in their departments and sort of say, well, look, we'd like this or this, and then they go through that process. So this service review isn't inventing anything new, or it's not putting in something that staff don't want themselves. This is a budget item that has been presented through the process of the organisation over a number of years, and it hasn't got up to hasn't been elevated high enough, or hasn't got the budget bid win in that regard through that budget process, simply because the funds of money aren't there. So that's where we as a council need to advocate to our officers if we believe that this has a higher priority than something else. So I think this has a very high priority, but I don't know what I'm putting against. If I'm putting against something that's pales insignificant, then I think we should have that conversation. But that's the hard part for all of us, pulling out an item of $60,000 or $70,000 on something else to put this in. But it's a very good read, and I'm very happy having brought this notice of motion forward, and appreciate the extra learnings and appreciate the officers' time and the detailed report. Thank you.
All those in favour? Carried. I'd just like to say that that we do spend $130,000 a year on our renewal modelling over a 5-year work plan, so that's why I'm voting against that. For that reason, it's in the report. Thank you. Item 7.10, Delegates Report and Informal Meetings of Councillors' Records. I refer to page 58 of the agenda for this report, and that the Council receive and note the Delegates' Report and Informal Meetings of Councillors for the past month. Are there any questions, Councillors? There's no questions. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Robbins. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Robbins, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you. I attended the launch of the Buninyong Native Habitat Restoration Guide. The guide was produced by the Buninyong Landscape Alliance and is aimed at the 5,000 plus peri-urban landholders around Golden Plains, Moorabool and Ballarat. It encourages readers to identify the native plants that would have originally been found on their land using a new mapping tool called the SciLink system. This is the first step to restoring native habitat, and it helps to identify plants that are likely to thrive on your property. I found out that my home is on basalt transitional plains waterlogging savanna, or where the basalt plain meets the foothills. So there's a list of the right kinds of trees and grasses I should plant if I want to restore native habitat. The Buninyong landscape isn't just the area that we might think of around Buninyong or Mount Buninyong. It encompasses the Wodialloc, Moorabool and Lee River catchments, so it's down this end of the Shire as well. I actually gave my copy of the guide to Councillor Gamble prior to last night's meeting, but it's also available digitally on the Buninyong Landscape Alliance website.
Thank you. Just quickly, I attended the Bannockburn Skate Park that Councillor Gamble attended with Christine Cousins. It's a great facility. It's a collaboration between state government and Golden Plains Shire. It's also positive to see residents also being asked to view proposed Lethbridge Skate Park concept designs, which is good. And also I'm looking forward to attending many Anzac Day services that will be held across the Shire, representing residents of Golden Plains on their behalf on our National Day of Remembrance. Thank you.
Any councillor would like to speak for it?
Just additional to the entries in my delegates report. Yes, I was honoured to give the opening address, the official address from the Golden Plains Shire perspective, with the new Brazlis Bowl, as it's known at the, well, at least by the council people. I'm not sure the kids call it that. Anyway, that was a really good thing to open, and really important infrastructure to give kids around Bannockburn especially, but lots of kids from other towns and things come to it. In fact, sometimes you get kids coming from like Torquay and things just to experience these type of facilities. So, yeah, I was going past there the other day, and it's a thriving sort of area, especially on school holidays, with all the kids using the really good skating and scootering and stuff facilities there. Golden Plains Farmers Market, very good. And also note, I attended the Lethbridge train station, the Bluestone train station opening, which is, we thank VicTrack for contributing funding for a magnificent restoration. I think it cost something like $1 million or so to do it all to heritage standard. It's got multiple really good quality rooms. It's a beautiful setting, so if you ever get the chance to go there and have a look, it's fantastic. And also there, it was really great to meet a lot of community people. It was a big day. Councillor Sharkey opened it. I'm sure he'll talk about it in a minute. But the community plan was really good. The community planners there are really enthusiastic and keen about what they're putting forward to the council to get help with what their priorities are. And yeah, I thought that was a really good one worth noting. Thank you. Is
there anyone else who'd like to speak against it or for it?
I better speak now. Councillor Hammond, the Lethbridge Bluestone opening was a fantastic one. I believe you were there as well, Councillor Kirby, and it's just a fantastic. Just being able to look at that building for many years and seeing what the community there have wanted over a long period of time, it's something that we'll probably not see again. A project like that is not something that will happen too often. It is, and I heard that $1 million figure as well. It's $1 million. It's very hard to get a comprehension. We see what $1 million buys in skateball parks and football ovals and female change rooms and sporting complexes. It's a significant amount of money. when you're dealing with bluestone buildings and all that, it's beautiful the work they've done, and hopefully the community that turned up in the droves on the day, and there was a lot of officers there in attendance. Previous CEO Rod Nichols was there as well, so it goes to show how backdated some of these issues are, and the work that some of the officers have done in getting that funding to do that is something that council would only ever dream about being able to afford to do, and hopefully we do see some of them. I'm sure everyone here would love to see that done in Bannockburn and the like. I was fortunate enough to get round to the Arts Trail on the weekend or the weekend before, which was fantastic. Bought a couple of pieces there, and I had some really good conversations with some of the art people there, that some of these buildings, such as Lethbridge, would be fantastic places to hang art and attract people and those sorts of things. So yeah, some fantastic work done by the community. But those projects, the art project and that Lethbridge one, there's a huge amount of kudos that needs to be given from us as a council to the individuals out there that are doing a significant amount of work in the community, our community leaders out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for the motion? Yes?
No, I've already spoken, but just concur with Councillor Sharkey about the arts trial, which I also sampled some of, and yeah, really good.
There's no one else. I'd just like to say that I attended the opening of the Victorian Park change rooms. It was a $1.8 million project, and we received $1.1 million from the Victorian State Government, $690,000 from the federal government, and it was attended by Libby Coker, Christine Cousins and the Honourable Richard Miles. Now, we had a great day, a great morning opening it, and the really good part about it was we'd already opened the netball change rooms late last year. This year we were doing the female change rooms in the football area, so we were, you know, making it multi-purpose for male and female, fixing up the toilets, the change rooms, the umpires' rooms. And I'd just like to say that overall the council did a fantastic job, because originally that wasn't part of the project, but because the costs came down so much after COVID, we were able to put some of that money into female change rooms in that area, from the netball building, the new netball pavilion for the girls. So it was a fantastic outcome for our shire that we were able to achieve two separate identities in the one space at Victoria Park. So once again, I'd like to thank the governments for putting the money in, for helping us get those change rooms up to scratch. And I also attended the Lethbridge train station opening, and what a magnificent building that is. The old bluestone, and what they've done to it is amazing. And, you know, just the things that can happen there now is you could have wedding events. There's the tourism around Lethbridge is just, it's going to kill it, because people just love to see old railway stations done up. Even though it's a shame, we might get a train one day from Geelong to Ballarat, but hopefully, as we were told previously, they can always put a new station on the opposite side. So that's could be a good move for the future. Councillor Robbins, if you would like to close?
Oh, I'll just point out the change rooms project that you mentioned, where we were able to achieve that outcome because there was some money left over from another project. I'll just mention that that was a good outcome from the Councillor Contracts Committee as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. We have a petition tonight, 9.1, a petition from the LGBTIQA plus Advisory Committee. I refer councillors to page 62 of the agenda for this report, and the recommendation that Council 1, receive the petition in relation to the creation of an LGBTIQA+ advisory committee, and 2, refer the petition to the Chief Executive Officer for consideration and response. Are there any questions, councillors? No questions? I'll have a mover. Councillor Gamble. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Robbins. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Gamble?
No, at this stage it's up to the CEO to advise an outcome from it, so I'll leave it in his capable hands.
Thank you. Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for it? If not, I'll put the vote. All those in favour? Carried. There is no urgent business tonight, and there is no confidential reports for decision. So I'd like to thank the gallery for being here tonight, and everyone watching and live streaming. I'd like to close the meeting at what time? Thank you.